Hey guys, Brian delivered you the goods here. I'm returning to you for this last video for the night, and then I thought I was going to do more videos, but the other videos are going to be on hold for a little bit for these premiere videos that I want to get out to you guys, but they're not going to come out till later in the month of March, like close to the end of March. But overall, I'm returning to you for the 7th studio album in All Time Low's discography, Last Young Renegade, that I got a chance to listen to for myself to see what I was going to think of this record overall. So I'm going to discuss what I listened to for this 42-minute record, which I'm including the 2 extra bonus tracks with the record to make it a 12-track album. And I'll let you know my thoughts on what I think of Last Young Renegade overall, the 7th studio album in All Time Low's discography. So let's dive into this album review tonight. Now, pretty much it starts with the title track, Last Young Renegade, and off the bat, it's a pretty good song in its own way. Not one of my personal favorites, but not terrible in any way. Alex Gaskar's vocals sound nice in this track, and the overall vibe to it is pretty chill for the most part, so I'm really digging how it's sounding. 4.75 out of 5. Title track's pretty strong, and the drum work in it is solid, but there's a lot of pop, EDM kind of stuff in the background. I don't know if I can get on board. Like, some of the pop beat is kind of taking over the track. Like, they're really experimenting with this record a lot, but not to the extent where it's terrible. So 4.75 out of 5. Then we get the next track, Drugs and Candy, which is a above decent track. Not something that I'm gonna write home about saying it's the best song. So it's got some mixing issues for the most part, but overall it's fairly above decent. So a 4.25 out of 5 is deserving for it. And Alex Gaskar's vocals are solid enough to make the song progress. It's just the mixing of the track is kind of underwhelming. Dirty Laundry is another above decent track. I don't know if I'm feeling for the vibe of this song. I don't necessarily hate it, but it's kind of decent. So it's a 4 out of 5 for me. This track kind of, Alex Gaskar's vocals sound nice in it for the most part, but it's just the song's lazy production is kind of hit or miss. So it's kind of like, eh. Then we get Good Times, which the mixing in this at the intro of the song is kind of iffy and not so great. So I'd give this a 4.25 out of 5. I don't necessarily hate Good Times. I just don't know if I'm feeling for the overall vibe and the structure of the track. Just how the melody is executing. It's kind of hit or miss. So, but Alex Gaskar's vocals are pretty strong in it for the most part, and the overall instrumentation is kind of faded out in this. Nice to Know You is a good song. I do dig this track for how it sounds, so a 4.5 is deserving for this track. I just think Alex Gaskar's vocals are very strong in this. The drum work and guitar work is pretty solid, and the pop beat to it is pretty fair. It's pretty solid too. It's not one of the worst things I've listened to, but not one of the best. But it is a good track in its own way. Life of the Party is a decent song. Not really vibing with this track too much. It's just something I could listen to once and be like, yep, not gonna listen to it again. Excuse my yawning in this video. I'm gonna be going to sleep pretty shortly after this review. But other than that, Life of the Party is a 4 out of 5. I don't necessarily love this track that much. It's just the way Alex Gaskar's singing this track it's kind of lazy, and there's no motivation in the songwriting, in the mixing and production. There's a little bit of laziness in this track, and it's kind of disappointing. But overall, I guess a 4 out of 5 is deserving for it. Nightmares is a about decent track too. The vibe to it is kind of like out there with the experimentation with the melody. And the production and mixing, it has a lot of experimentation in this song and pretty much in this record. But overall, I think Alex Gaskar's vocals are solid, and the production and mixing is kind of like on the nose, on like a little nosedive where it's like, I don't know if I like it kind of shit. But other than that, 4.25 out of 5. Dark Side of Your Room is a above decent track too. It's another 4.25 out of 5 for this one. I don't necessarily hate it, but I don't necessarily love it. It's just the vibe to it and the melody. I'm so sorry about my yawning throughout most of this video. I've just been so freaking drained. I just ate some food recently, and I'm gonna pretty much crash after this review. But other than that, 4.25 out of 5 for Dark Side of Your Room. Alex Gaskar's vocals are alright. Just the melody and execution is kind of like Ground Control. I almost said Ground Zero. Ground Control featuring Tegan and Sarah. Another above decent track that I'm just not vibing with too much. It's not meshing well with this track, with the melody, how the singing is, the harmonizing is kind of hit or miss. But overall, the track's alright of a listen, so a 4.25 out of 5 is deserving for this one. And for the regular edition, to close out the record, we have Afterglow. To close out the regular edition, but I'm adding 2 extra tracks, keep in mind. So I'm not clearly done with this review yet. But 3.75 out of 5 for Afterglow. It's very mediocre of a song. It's above average, but it's not a great track in any way. It has its flaws, but quite a bit of flaws. It's just the mixing and just the production in it is a little lazy, and it's just Alex Gaskar's not really putting any motivation. I mean, the singing's good, but it's just, what is it with this production on this record? It's like really soft of an album. It's like All Time Low went very soft on this record, and it's kind of disappointing. But other than that, 3.75 out of 5. Chemistry is another 3.75 out of 5. I don't necessarily love this track too much. It's mediocre as well. But it is short, so you gotta at least commend them for making a short song and kind of simple, under 3 minutes. So 3.75 out of 5. Alex Gaskar's vocals do work from time to time, and just the mixing and production is solid. And finally, Vampire Shift is probably a good track for how it sounds. I'd give this a 4.5 out of 5. It closes out the record alright. It starts off pretty good and closes out the record alright. So, pretty much, Vampire Shift has some nice melody structures, and just Alex Gaskar singing in it is fairly solid. So, yeah, 4.5 out of 5. So, overall, production, mixing, and execution-wise, I don't know. I just wasn't really clicking with this record too much. I think it's kind of okay, but it's not the best thing I've listened to of All Time Low's discography. This is probably weaker than Dirty Laundry. Or not Dirty Laundry. Dirty Work, I meant to say. the 2011 record, which that record wasn't the best either, but this is the weakest one that I've listened to in their discography, and probably the only weakest one that I know so far. The other two albums that I'm going to be reviewing next are pretty strong ones. But other than that, this is probably the weakest record in their discography that I know of. And it's disappointing because it's just, they have the potential to make good music, but they rely on the lazy mixing and production in this record that really sets them back to making what they want to make. And that's really a shame because they went pop with this record. And honestly, Last Young Renegade is kind of a snooze fest in its own way. But at least it's okay. It's not the worst thing, but it's not the best thing. So if I were to give All Time Low Last Young Renegade its deserved score, I'm feeling an okay rating of a 6.5 out of 10. It's okay. It's not the best record of 2017 when it came out like almost 8 years ago. So pretty much it's just Alex Gaskar's vocals work through time to time, but the problem with this record is the production and the mixing because it sounds very lazy, washed up, and just it's not putting enough effort into entertaining the listener too much. It's just the effort's kind of out the window with this record. They just wanted to play it safe, which they did, but it just, you get my drift basically. It just didn't work to what they were wanting to go for. So 6.5 out of 10 for All Time Low Last Young Renegade. I hope you enjoyed this final video tonight. I will have more videos tomorrow sometime. But until then, the next review will be the Wake Up Sunshine album, the re-review, and Tell Me I'm Alive. And that should finish it off by February 28th. But until then, have a good night, guys, and thanks for watching this review.